get set up here. There. It just said we're live. Yeah? Good stuff. Now I can follow along with comments. Okay, let me get set up. I always get some notes pulled up so that I'm not going off on a tangent here, but let me know if you're here. Okay, so today we're talking about pre and post workout nutrition, which I always like to think that it's more of a like an advanced topic because you shouldn't really be worried about pre and post workout nutrition if you're not nailing your nutrition the other times. So sometimes I think we're really good at distracting ourselves by moving or trying to move the needle in areas that give us the smallest return on our investment, less ROI, where we need to be better investing our time and our energy into moving the really big rocks, the things that are going to matter way more than what you eat pre and post workout. So if you are like, oh, I dabble in trying a bunch of things, it's time to stop dabbling in trying a bunch of things and really focus on how can I do the fundamentals consistently, even though imperfectly, and do them consistently for longer periods of time versus then I tried that and that didn't work. I tried that and that didn't work. So all that to say is when we are talking about pre and post workout nutrition, there are some of you that are going to be listening to this that are ready for this, but there are others that are better to just save this and bank it for a later time to come back to because your better investment of time is nailing what you're eating the other times throughout the day, you know, for your breakfast, for your lunch, for your dinner, for your snacks, on the weekends, when you're emotional, all those sorts of things, and then nailing kind of your movement as well. So I hope that prefaces today. But if you are here and you are listening to this training, whether you're here live or you're on the replay, then what I want you to do is just head to the comments and just say, let me know that you're here. It also sends me a little signal, a little beep, beep, beep to tell me that you're an imperfect action taker. And what I mean by an imperfect action taker is you listen to this training, you're not about just collecting information. No, you're about actually doing something with it imperfectly, but consistently. And these trainings are about doing simple better. So I really do, even though I just kind of said that at the beginning of the hour as to hey, who kind of needs to listen to this and who should kind of skip over this training. You're not ready for it here. Oh, Lori, good. I do love that we are talking about it because it doesn't get enough attention and could make a huge difference, particularly if you're optimizing again your nutrition, your sleep, your stress, and your exercise in other areas, right? Then this could be like the next layer to kind of take you to the next kind of level for you. So typically when Oh, hi, Shelly and Linda. Okay, so typically when I start coaching women, they lean on what they have been told. So, well, I guess like if we're all here, we're 40 plus, if not closer to 50. And we were told like work out fasted, you burn more calories, don't eat after your workouts. After all, you just burned all those calories. So why would you go and eat, right? And again, I'm excluding the person who says I work out to eat. I'm including the person who says, I want to work out because I want to look fit and I want to be strong, but also it's like I want to lose weight too, right? So that's probably advice that you have followed at some period of time, but I'm guessing by the stories that I put up and the conversations I'm having from women, it's still what we're continuing to follow. So there might have been a period of time in your life where that strategy worked. When your 20s and your 30s, working out fasted, you didn't gas out, you were getting the results you wanted, your metabolism was different, your hormone levels were different. That makes total sense, right? I think we just sometimes forget that. But now that we're in perimenopause and menopause, we have to ask, is that the best strategy? So we're going to talk about that today in this training. So the goal is to get you to get the most out of your workouts, right? So nobody wants to be like putting in all of that time, all that effort, and feeling like they are not getting anything in return. And in return means not only do we want to, get some muscle, feel stronger, but we also want to make sure that it's not disrupting our hormones, it's not disrupting disrupting muscle growth, which we'll get to in a bit, because no, I'm not talking about bulky muscles here, and that it doesn't disrupt your sleep and your energy as well. So at this stage of our life, right, so we're talking perimenopause, menopause, our nutrition does need to look different. Why? Well, because we want to focus on building and retaining muscle. So we know that that becomes a little bit harder for hormonal reasons, right? And so where it used to be a lot easier for you to do that, let's say, especially if you've been at this for a long time, you're like, well, why am I not getting the same return on my investment like I used to do? Or why aren't these things that I used to do now not working for me? So yes, we want to look at building and retaining muscle, but we want to also look at, again, supporting our hormones as well. So if you feel like my hormones are out of whack or my hormones are to blame for my weight gain, I'm going to tell you that they respond to your inputs. So we want to make sure that we're optimizing our inputs so that they are, I guess, acting accordingly or acting in the way that you want them to, or responding in the way that you want to. And then we want to make sure that what we're doing in terms of pre and post workout, but also just through our general nutrition, through our stress, through our sleep, and through our exercise, that we're reducing inflammation. So it does mean that, yes, our workouts need to change. So, because we need to make sure that we're sending the right signals to our body, and that signal needs to be about retaining and muscle building. Why does it need to be that way? Well, when you send the signal to say, I'm retaining and muscle building, and you have muscle, then your metabolism revs up a little bit higher. Well, what's that mean? Well, it means that you can get away with eating a little bit more food, for example, that you just have a higher metabolism, which means it's easier for you to lose weight or keep that weight off, particularly when you have muscle. So that's why we're looking at that. And back then, or maybe you used to just focus more on cardio and HIIT to get to your weight loss goals, and that used to work really well for you. Like I used to do endurance, like half marathons and run all the time, and it used to work really well. I do remember the very first one, and I was like, holy shit, my body has just completely changed. The weight's just coming off, but it doesn't happen the same way anymore, right? And I think that's where a lot of women get stuck, is like, why the F does it not work, right? And so when you're relying on cardio and HIIT, well, you're not necessarily sending that signal to say, hey, I want to retain and I want to build muscle, right? Now, I'm not saying never do these. That's not what I'm saying, because cardiovascular work does have a place, but I am saying that the priority should be more on weightlifting. Now, we've been told at this stage of the game, your metabolism kind of slows down, but here's the thing, it doesn't actually slow down as much as you think, or maybe that you've been led to believe. There are changes, and the changes you see is like maybe you see more like abdominal fat, or what you would call like the overhang or the muffin top or whatever. You are seeing that, and some of you are seeing the weight go up, but it's not related to your age, and it's not related necessarily completely all to your metabolism. Metabolism actually starts to decline more 60 plus versus in your 40s and your 50s. But what we are doing is we're not optimizing the environment for our hormones by what we eat, our sleep, our stress, and the way we exercise. And it's because oftentimes, because I've been doing this for 15 years, as we get caught in this used to work, why isn't it working anymore? Or this is what I think needs to happen, like cutting out carbs, for example, or even just like I always said about cardio. And those things don't work to optimize your hormones now. So what's happening? So as we get older, what we typically see in the body isn't even, we're just not as great at burning calories, because there are hormonal shifts happening, and generally we're losing muscle, but we're losing muscle versus like retaining and building muscle, right? So even though you're like, well, wait a minute, Cindy, how the hell is that happening because I'm lifting weights? Well, I've just got in a conversation with a woman who's been lifting the same pink weights pretty much her entire life, and she's just banking on sweating as an indication of a great workout. So things like that happen, but also it's like we're not challenging ourselves, because we grew up in an era where women were told don't lift heavy weights because you're going to get too bulky. And so we're not challenging our body enough in that sense or whatever. So there's hormonal shifts that are happening, right? So that makes it harder, or not makes it harder, but like we're just not burning calories the way we used to. And then we're generally losing more muscle. And then, so when the goal is to be building or retaining it. So when this happens, it can start to feel that our metabolism is like stuck or stalled and not working anymore. But really, if we ate in a way that was supported our hormones, and we're keeping the muscles and moving in a way that has us building muscle, it wouldn't generally feel this way, because hormones will respond to our inputs. And if we don't have the right inputs, then they're going to act in a different way, right? It's not to say that all your hormonal fluctuations or all your hormonal problems will go away, but they certainly don't have to be screaming as loud as what they are if we're optimizing the environment. So the thing we want to caution about with the rise in like different, like let's say injectable drugs for weight loss and various surgeries is like obviously you'll lose weight. There's lots of evidence or other people who have lost weight on those injectables or doing surgeries, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're improving your hormonal profile or your inflammation or even your digestion or building or preserving muscle. So if you're considering any of those two, then you'll want to also consider kind of, well, what lifestyle adjustments do I also have to make so that I am optimizing my digestion, I am decreasing inflammation, and I am sending the right signal that says I'm going to build and preserve muscle mass. So lastly, if you want to look toned or have muscle, well, toned is muscle, right? But I understand why women want to say toned because they don't want to, look like a bodybuilder on stage. But you have a lot of fat to lose. We need to prioritize that first while retaining the muscle we have. So that basically it's like we have muscle underneath the fat, so that when you lose the body fat, then you're moving into a more toned physique or the shape of your body starts to change. So not to mention, a muscle also helps with your blood sugars, which is important because as estrogen goes down, we have a harder time regulating our blood sugars. And it doesn't mean that you get diabetes, although diabetes could be a possibility, but it just means that when we have a hard time regulating blood sugar levels, one, we can hold on to more fat, but two, also more cravings start to happen. And when that happens, we start to have a lot of different energy crashes. If you go out for like a huge pasta meal, for example, with your garlic bread or whatever, you probably feel okay. And then you get up and then it's an hour later and like you want a nap, kind of like how it feels after a turkey dinner. Well, that's an example of, hey, you don't have diabetes, but your blood sugars are kind of out of whack. Or if you're kind of like you've eaten clean and then all of a sudden you eat a crap ton of candy or sugar or whatever, you feel kind of like anxious and racing heart and a fast pulse, for example. That's an example as well. So it ends up being you have more crashes and more cravings, right? And you don't have the estrogen to kind of buffer it all. So at this stage of the game, we just need a different plan and strategy, one that kind of helps our metabolism and regulates our hormones. And on the muscle front, at a minimum, helps you a minimum retain what you have, right? Because we all know people who have lost weight. Like I don't know, maybe you haven't, but I know certainly people who have lost a lot of weight, and it's they're a lot smaller, but they have a lot more skin issues. They have a lot more, and then they don't have the muscle. So they end up kind of like a skinny fat version. And then they say, okay, so now I want to build muscle. That's one strategy. But the best strategy is that you're retaining muscle at the same time that you're losing body fat. So this is why prioritizing cardio and HIIT just isn't going to work. Doing the same high reps and banking on sweat, that won't work either. Cutting your calories back so much for so long, and then even like cutting out carbs, not hitting your protein targets won't work. Here's the thing about cutting out carbs is like, yeah, you are going to see the weight go down. I'm not going to lie about that, but is it fat or is it water loss? And the other thing is like if you understand weight loss, it's a calorie deficit. Well, if you're eating a shit ton of carbs and now you cut it out, you just created a calorie deficit. I could do the exact same thing eating keto, eating paleo, intermittent fasting, or just knowing how to do and include all foods in my diet. There's so many different ways of creating the calorie deficit. So you really have to ask yourself, if you're cutting out carbs, it's one, are you losing fat or are you losing water weight? And number two is, do you see yourself 5, 10, 15 years down the road doing that? And if your answer is no, then you have a temporary strategy, you don't have a long-term lifestyle strategy. And if you're saying like, hey, cutting out carbs just makes me feel good, well, why don't you try and reduce your inflammation and balance out your hormones rather than cutting out foods? It's just like a band-aid solution to that, especially if you keep going back to it and not hitting your protein targets, because it's going to help you retain and build that muscle, which we've just kind of gone into as well. So it's why we need to have stress and sleep as part of the equation or the plan as well. So some of you are just focusing just on the exercise or just on nutrition or both things, but we're not looking at, because we're just accepting that stress is what it is. But when I ask you what's in your stress basket to make you more stress resilient, well, we don't have anything. And so when it becomes too high level of stress, then we're resulting in food. And what we know is that your stress tolerance kind of goes down as your estrogen goes as your perimenopause and menopause goes up. is just because you don't have the estrogen to buffer it as well, and just because there's already internal stress going on that you don't even realize, on top of the everyday stress or the added stress that's going on there too. So and then sleep as well, because not only do we need that for digestion, rest and digest, but we need that as part of our recovery process too. So metabolism slows down not because of age, but because of all of this. We aren't just optimizing our inputs to make hormones less ragey, less angry, or against us, however you want to say it. So improving like your hormonal profile while maintaining muscle mass becomes the key, because those two things, of course, stress, sleep, and mindset matter too, can obviously make things worse. So when we're talking about pre and post workout, we got to ask ourselves like which workouts qualify, right? Is it all movement, or is it just specific movement? So we want to save, like when we're talking about pre and post workout, we're talking about weight training that brings you to the point of failure, or brings you to a level that your muscles are exhausted, or your muscles have been taxed in a way, like they've been challenged. So we're talking about weightlifting, we're talking about intervals as well, we're talking about endurance training, particularly anything that's over 45 minutes or longer. Now, if you're like a brand new newbie, that might be a lower threshold, so you might need 30 minutes or longer, for example. But for some of you that have been around the block for a while, have been doing the endurance things, and you can think about it as 45 minutes or longer. So casual exercise, like what I think about when I walk my dog Maverick, who walks at a snail's pace and has to sniff everywhere and sometimes drags his ass on the walks. I'm not looking at pre and post workout nutrition on that. Also, if I'm just going for a walk by myself, unless I'm booting her or I've got like a rucking, I've got a weighted vest or something like that, I'm not necessarily looking at optimizing pre and post workout nutrition. If I'm moving like with my mom, she doesn't move very fast, for example, or even just like I thought about like my grandma, then I wouldn't be optimizing that. And sometimes like riding your bike too, right? It's like you're not going for a full speed ride on your bike. You're just going through a leisurely ride, then you don't have to worry. Those all count for movement. But when we're looking at optimizing pre and post workout nutrition, you don't have to, every time I move my body, I have to think about that. Although it might be a good strategy for you, because it's going to really boost up your protein as well. So let's look at pre-workout nutrition first. So pre-workout nutrition can refer to like the last meal or snack you ate before you work out. That can be up to 2 hours before or just before your workout. We're gonna we're going to get into that in a little bit. But basically, it's like it doesn't have to be something specific, like what should I have for pre or post workout nutrition? It can just be like the last meal or the last snack you had before your workout, which can be up to 2 hours before or just before your workout. So for your pre workout meal, we need our energy levels right. Otherwise, we're going to struggle through the workout. So I don't know about you. So if you've ever done one of those intervals or like a Tabata, for example, and you're doing really good, and then you're timing. So let's say you're doing reps in a certain amount of time, and you're doing the reps and you're just like, yeah, crushing it. Okay, so I got 10 reps in. Okay, so the next round, I'm going to try and do 10 reps. And as you start doing it longer, you start to see the decline. Like you're no longer able to hit the same rep count or the same intensity or the same weight, for example. Like there's many different factors that play into that. But one of them is that because we haven't properly fueled our body to be able to put maximum output into our workouts there. And so, and then we kind of like gas out, and we don't get the max that we need out of our workout. We don't get to the pushing our muscles to where they need to be to kind of create a change that we want in our body. So what we need to understand is that working out is a stressor on the body. Like it is a good thing for you to move and to work out. However, it is perceived as a stressor. So what happens is, because it's a stressor, the body's not deciphering whether or not your house is on fire, although you might have more adrenaline there, or the bear's running after you. Again, you might have more adrenaline and more cortisol. But really, it's just saying, hey, there's a stressor. It doesn't decipher what it is that you're doing that's different. And because it's a stressor on the body, it does the same thing essentially in that. So when you're in perimenopause and menopause, your stress is already high. So we don't also want to make ourselves feel more brain fog or more irritable or more moody and have more cravings. So this is why we want our pre-workout, is because one is you're understanding that in order for me to maximize what I'm doing in my workouts, I need to have enough fuel going in. That's that's number one. Number two is, hey, I already have stress on my body because of these hormonal changes, and the workout's already a stressor. So I don't need to add an additional stressor by, not eating before my workout. And then I also don't need to add more of a hormonal impact on the backside where I'm feeling more brain fog, more irritable, more moody, and experiencing more cravings. So that's why we want to fuel our workouts. So again, like, why does this matter? Obviously, we want to get the most out of our workouts. Like I said, often we think we worked out, our job is done, but we aren't considering how we can optimize our food to get even more out of our workouts. So skipping the pre-workout meal, often because we think, well, why the calories, right? I'm trying to lose weight, so less will mean more weight loss. But what if it's actually a roadblock and disrupting your goals even more? And often we're just not asking that question because we have the belief that says, I'm trying to lose weight, and so this is going to get me to lose weight a lot faster if I just do this workout fasted. So not optimizing your pre-workout can add, again, more stress, result in less max effort in your workouts. And you might not actually see it unless we've been on those workouts in the gym before where we've timed our rep, like it's timed and we're doing a certain amount of reps, and you can see a decrease as well. Or you can see it sometimes in the gym and the clients, I can see, they're 30 minutes in and I can see their face change, like they're gassed out. And then I ask, did they eat this morning? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, that's why, right? Not to mention it can make you feel shaky. So because you have blood sugar drops or blood pressure too, and it doesn't safeguard your hormones. So what do we want in our pre-workout meal is generally it's a carb and a protein. There's an option for you to add fats and a veggie. Fats can, slow down the absorption of the carbs and the protein. So especially if you are going into a longer run, the reason why runners, will do glucose like in those little packets or candies or whatever is because it gives them the burst of energy. It's operating in the right system, depending on what kind of workout you're in, aerobic or anaerobic, different things happen in the body. And so it can use that real quickly to keep you going. Fats kind of slow it down a little bit. So what happens with carbs are broken down into glucose, which is stored in your muscles and your liver and provides you with like a steady source of energy. And then protein is for muscle support, prevents like your muscle breakdown by getting in the required amino acids for muscle repair and growth. So you get better recovery and better push in your workouts. So essentially these two things are buddies basically, and you want to have your buddy system come with you in that pre-workout meal. And we'd already defined that can be the last meal you ate within 2 hours or just before. Some people get away with being able to eat before and not have burpee or digestive issues, or feel okay, or others just don't. So that's why there's a bigger window for everybody, is because everybody's kind of going to feel a little bit different in that sense. So you want your buddy system, the carb and the protein, in your pre-workout meal or your pre-workout snack just before there. So let's say it's first thing in the morning. So what some of my clients will do is they'll have like half a protein shake with maybe a bit of fruit. I say half because most of us, or most of them, just wake up, right? They wake up, they get changed in the dark, they get in their car and they go to the gym, or they get changed and they go downstairs to their basement or whatever. So there isn't a lot of like time in between those things. So that's why they're not having like a full protein shake, because again, it just doesn't work for their body. And the thing with the protein shake, does it have to be? No. Do you have to take a protein shake ever? No. It just happens to be something quick that's easy and something that doesn't wake up the whole house as well. And it's protein is also quick digesting. 1 second, Maverick needs up here. Okay. So it could be half a protein bar too, if that's what you like. Again, it's not a whole food, either as protein powder, but sometimes that just makes it easy. Now, if you're like, Cindy, I just worked out fasted, here's what you need to know. Cortisol is high first thing in the morning. Okay, so for everybody, when you wake up, your cortisol levels are highest first thing in the morning. Now you're adding more stress, right, by not eating. So you're adding more of that. And then on top of that, you're adding more stress on top of your fasted workout, right? And so, and then if you're the kind of person who just starts your morning with coffee as well and no food, just think of the layers of stress that you are already adding just as you wake up in the morning. That never used to be an issue when you were in your 20s and even your 30s, but it is an issue when you're in perimenopause and menopause. We know that when cortisol is high, we know that certain things happen, and we know that fat fat loss, it becomes a little bit harder. We also know cortisol likes to deposit itself around your waistline. And so you're thinking, I've never changed anything. I've always done fasted workouts. I've never eaten breakfast. I always start my day with coffee, that sort of thing. But now it just has a different hormonal impact on you now that you're in perimenopause and menopause, and you're just stuck on, I haven't changed anything. Why isn't this working? But I'm like, that's exactly why it's not working. It's because things do need to change. So eating first thing in the morning before your workout is a good idea in terms of what you eat. You want the buddy system, the protein and the carbohydrate, and there's many different ways you can make that up. Now, let's say you eat breakfast and let's say you can eat breakfast and then work out. Like there's a bit of like time in there. Like let's say it's like you eat breakfast and then you get the kids out the door, for example, and get them ready, and then you're driving to the gym. So there's like a lag in time there. You could do like a slice of toast with some eggs. You could do oatmeal and Greek yogurt. Again, my clients really love mixing like their favorite protein powder in with Greek yogurt and then adding fruit, kind of like a little bit of a parfait, for example. You could do it that way as well. So again, you need the buddy system. And for those of you that work out before dinner, this could mean like a snack before you work out. So let's say it's like, okay, you're going to eat at 6 o'clock and your workout's at like 4:30 or 5 o'clock. So you could backtrack it and do your snack. So that, again, that could be some Greek yogurt and fruit. You can add, some granola in there, for example, or, you can make some protein muffins. I just shared the recipe on the cottage cheese and banana muffins. That would be a good grab and go. For some of my clients who work out just around dinner time, they might do half their dinner before they go and then half their dinner when they come back, just ensuring that it has some carbohydrates and protein in it. And some of your, some of your workout there as well. So let's say you were doing your dinner, let's say it's like you're having a little bit of steak and you're having rice. You could have like your chicken and your rice, or your chicken and your potatoes, or chicken and your sweet potatoes. Those are examples of how to do the buddy system, right? So now the timing of the snack again will vary, because some of you can eat and work out and not have a problem, while others need to consider the timing and the quality. Like I'm the kind of person who can eat and then work out right away, whereas I have other clients in the gym and they're constantly burping it up, or they feel gassy and then feel like scared to be around other people when they're working out. What I do know about myself, which I learned a valuable lesson, is never ever eat salmon before a workout, because those burps are disgusting when you're trying to work out. So again, it does vary, and we don't want to be super full, right? Because then again, that's when you get the upset stomach or to be gassy. We don't want the body working hard on digestion and not building us some muscles. So you can also consider limiting the fiber before your workout. 1 to 3 hours would be a really good guideline. So that's why the veggies sometimes are hit and miss, because it's like fiber can really disrupt you in your workout. And the last thing you want, again, is the body to be working hard on digestion versus muscle building. So that covers pre-workout. And if you have any questions, just pop them down below. But I hope I gave you kind of some ideas on that. And I know one of the questions that came in is, what happens if you wake up, you work out super, super early? I just gave you kind of a strategy on how to go about doing that. There is nothing wrong with actually drinking your protein shake during the workout as well. Again, as long as it's not going to cause digestive upset, because that's not the goal of the workout, right? Is to have the body working on that. You can do that as well. And I know that that's counterintuitive as well to the messages that we grew up with, right? It's like work out fasted if you're trying to lose, She says, I feel sick first thing in the morning, so I work out, then get ready for work, then eat my breakfast. So if you feel sick, generally it's not just because of the workout, it's generally because you're not a breakfast person, I'm guessing, and you probably don't eat breakfast. There is a correlation between eating snacks at nighttime and not eating breakfast or not eating early enough. So if you're seeing like, hey, I'm trying to solve my snacking later on at night, you might want to consider bumping up during the day too. I gave you some ideas in terms of what's happening on the cortisol levels of sorts of things. So it's like, are you trying to eat too much, or is it what you're trying to eat, for example, that we might need to look at changing up as well. So that's that. So let's take a look at the Okay, so you don't eat past supper. Yes. So, for example, I'll give you an example of a client that I talked to yesterday. It's like she doesn't eat breakfast. She eats at her first meals at 11, and yes, she does have snacking later on at night. But when you look at her calorie range, and she goes to bed at 9:30. So when you look at her calorie range, a lot of her bulk of her calories were from 12 o'clock to there's sometimes she's snacking right to 5 o'clock. That's a majority of her calories. Well, you just missed this window where you have the opportunity to kind of burn some of those calories off. You're not optimizing that as well. So I also work with a ton of clients. I have two actually right now who are not breakfast eaters, and we've managed to, they're not necessarily getting up first thing in the morning and eating, but they are bumping up their earlier times in eating, and it is resulting in more satisfaction, less cravings, less snacking at night, and actually better sleep as well. And their cortisol levels, because we work with a naturopath to do testing, those are coming down too. But we're being specific here in terms of your pre-workout. So again, it's looking at what is it that I can tolerate. You might find, like, again, half a protein shake might be your best option. So when you look at post-workout, the rules are the same, protein and carbs for post-workout. Here's the neat thing about carbs post-workout. You won't see the rise in insulin because the muscle kind of unlocks it and looks to use it. So that's the neat thing about carbohydrates right after your workout. I always like to think is like you want carbohydrates. It's like you want to bring, think about Winnie the Pooh. It's like you want to bring Tigger to the party post-workout. And the cool thing is that, you know, your muscles are going to make use of it. It's not going to result in blood sugar spikes. It's not going to result in more like fat storage, for example. So obviously, if you overeat, right, you're in a calorie surplus throughout the day, or you eat a lot, then that can be the difference maker here. But optimizing a carb post-workout is important. And carbs will also nourish your body effectively after exercise, but it'll also support the production of kind of hormones, regulating kind of key hormones. So for example, cortisol, which influences the production of hormones like estrogen and progesterone. So if progesterone is low, it means more hot flashes, night sweats, irritability, brain fog, no libido, bloating, fluid retention, you feel puffy. It naturally goes down, but not eating post-workout kind of makes that all worse. It's some of the reasons why fasted workouts should be avoided or kept to a minimum because of the raising of cortisol and the effects it has on women in peri and menopause. So kind of like those hormonal fluctuations and the inability to maintain and build muscle or have energy and, you know, crashes and cravings later, not to mention affect your sleep. So the last thing we want to be doing is under eating and have all the hormonal stuff going on, and then the body's going to the muscle for energy and depleting it. So you're working out really hard, you're trying to get toned and build muscle, you're putting in all this work, this energy, right? You're putting in all this work, and then all of a sudden you're under eating it while you're having all these hormonal fluctuations. And yes, we do need a calorie deficit. So this is like, you know, how do you balance the two, right? I'm talking about women who severely undercut, like I've had two women this week who used to do the HCG diet, which is 500 calories. Yeah, you're going to lose weight because you're in a calorie deficit, but what are you doing what's the repercussions down the road for you doing that? And what's that doing to your hormonal profile? So there's a difference between under eating and eating in a calorie deficit. Those two things are a little bit different. They're a little bit more nuanced, right? But if you have all the hormonal stuff going on, the last thing you want is now the body has to go pull from the muscles that you're trying to build in those workouts to get what it needs from it to kind of regulate things and get back to homeostasis. You don't want that. You want it to pull from your fat stores. That's what you want. And so we want to make sure that not only do we have carbs afterwards, right? Because they're going to help you, kind of the muscles are going to go use that. We also want to make sure, one, we're keeping cortisol down low post-workout, because I already explained to you, like, the workouts are a stressor. And then also we want to make sure that, yes, we're in a calorie deficit if we want to lose weight, but we're not so much in a calorie deficit that we're under eating that's exasperating all of this hormonal stuff, and then having the body kind of pull from the muscles to get what it needs. So eating post-workout kind of helps regulate that cortisol that is elevated through the exercise, on top of also life things. But it also helps with, like, Muscle soreness, improved recovery, increases your ability to build muscle, improves your immune function too, which is great for this time of year, improves bone mass, and improves your ability to utilize body fat. So, but a lot of women have had this belief that it doesn't matter. I burn the calories, why eat back my calories? Or they get caught up in I don't have time, I don't think about it, not hungry. But like we just talked about, your post workout serves a purpose, right? So, so obviously we need the protein and the carbohydrate, right? Together. Again, it's a buddy system there. Now, unlike pre-workout, as I said, hey, you could have some veggies, some fiber, and you could have some fats if you wanted to in your pre-workout, depending on how it sits and how it feels in your body for the workout. But post-workout, you really just want to limit it to protein and carbohydrates. Options of adding in veggies, but generally it's a protein and a carb. So that's why you see a lot of people post workout having a protein shake. They're mixing their protein powder with, let's say, water or milk, and then they're adding either fruit to it or fruit on the side, for example. A lot of you, when you're using your protein shake, you're just mixing it with water and then you're missing the carbohydrate. A lot of you, when you're eating your protein shake, it's really low in protein. It's not high. Like I've seen some clients come through when they're first starting and they're like, what do you think of this protein? And they send me the label and I'm just like, I get it. You want the collagen benefits or you want the phytonutrient benefits, but the protein is crap in this one here. So you end up having to spend more because you're needing to get a scoop, or it's really high in fats or whatever that is. So, but do you need a protein shake post workout? No. But the thing with the protein shake or protein powder post workout, it's quick acting. And what you want post workout is to get it to the muscles as fast as you can. You want the carb to get there fast and you want the protein to get there fast. So what are we eating? It's the same thing as kind of like I said, the pre-workout. Those same ideas kind of work. For some reason, you're having a protein shake but not adding the carbs or the fruit. Obviously, you need to add that. But you don't need to have the protein shake. What's not a good protein source is an energy ball. Energy ball, because they generally have a lot of nuts and seeds, or coconut or peanut butter. Those are not good examples of protein, period. And they're not good examples of post-workout protein options. So think about it as the carbohydrate is like Tigger, right? Post-workout, you want Tigger to come in fast, but you want Tigger to come and bring his buddy, and his buddy is Wise Owl, which is the protein. You want them to come together to the party, the post-workout party. Who you do not want to be invited is Eeyore. And so when you think about fats, when you think about nuts, seeds, coconut, peanut butter, cheese, anything like that, it's like bringing Eeyore to the after-workout party. And Eeyore will slow it all down, where the purpose of the post-workout meal is to get there as fast as you can. I hope that analogy makes sense. Give me a thumbs up in the comments there. But basically, you want Tigger, the carb, you want Owl, the protein, to come together to the post-workout party. You don't want Eeyore to come. Eeyore represents, nuts, seeds, cheese, coconut, peanut butter. A lot of you are using those as your protein sources. They do have protein, but they're much higher. The calories are coming more from the fats than they are from the protein, which means you need to adjust your servings, meaning they need to be more in alignment with the servings of fats versus the servings of protein. So what is the post-workout eating window? I know, like when you grew up back in the 90s or the early 2000s, it was like within 30 minutes of your workout, you have to eat. But research has come out to say like, hey, that's not necessarily true. So eating after means that you kind of like your nutrient absorption is heightened, insulin sensitivity is increased, muscle cells are more receptive to accepting all the nutrients you're consuming, and it puts them into our muscle cells in a liver versus storing it as fat cells. Again, it's still, you still have to keep in it, like it's this part of a bigger picture, right? So if I'm eating like crap the rest of the day, or I'm not consistent, or I'm eating in a surplus, well, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to go to fat cells. You're more heightened post-workout, but it just means like and it's going to go to your muscle cells, but you still have some fat cell stuff going on, right? And same thing if you overeat post-workout too, right? Because a lot of us get into that mindset of like, I worked out, so now I can eat whatever. Well, there's there's a difference between working out to eat, then you don't have the expectations of weight loss or toning, right? And then there's others who are like, well, I work out to fuel my workouts and to recover from my workouts so I get the most out of my workouts, because they understand that it's not just their 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 1 hour in the gym time. It's all of this other stuff surrounding their workout that matters too. So a good guideline for like your post workout is within an hour. It could be a balanced combo like a meal or a snack, and again, it's the quick digesting carbohydrates and some protein. It's not one or the other, it's really both. So when my coaching clients hit a plateau, this is often the place we go. We kind of start to manipulate the things, these things, like again, optimize kind of like their pre and post workout nutrition, and looking at nutrient timing. So I guess like all to say is like a lot of you have been on different diets, for example, or trying to lose weight, and you're really just focusing on eating clean, eating healthy, cutting out carbs, moving more, but you're not really optimizing how you're eating, why you're eating, and just the timing of what you're eating as well. And so that's the value of coaching, is it kind of manipulates those things in real time, troubleshoots them for you, and lays out the plan for you so that you know how to do it kind of going ahead. But again, as I said at the top of the hour, if you're not optimizing your nutrition at other meal times, and you're not optimizing sleep or your stress or your activity level, then don't start looking at pre and post workout nutrition thinking that it's going to be the thing that it's going to get you to where you need to go. You need to optimize all those other things first, and then this comes afterwards. It's not kind of like the first step on the ladder, it's multiple steps after you've mastered the others. So that's the pre and the post workout training. If you have any questions, then you just kind of hit them up in the comments there. I do have a blog post on what to look for in a protein powder. If that's what you're looking for, just comment below and I can link you to that blog post too, so that you know that you're picking the right one for you. Everybody has different kind of preferences for what they like, and what they're looking for and what they can tolerate. So I don't have like a specific one, for example. But that helps you kind of look at how to optimize your pre-workout nutrition and your post-workout nutrition so that you're getting the most out of your workouts as possible. So consider these trainings as a glass of water. Obviously, it holds value when consumed, not when left untouched. So you got to do something with it. Just taking in the information and listening to the trainings is not going to result in any difference in your health, your fitness, or your nutrition whatsoever. You just get more here and you get more disconnected. I know what to do, but I'm not doing it. Drinking it once provides momentary benefit, but consistently drinking it is what gets you maximum results. So just because you try it once or you try it for a week doesn't mean that you're being consistent, and doesn't mean that you're going to get the results that you want out of it. And the key is to really take imperfect yet consistent action. So sometimes it does mean that we need to ask ourselves the right questions. Sometimes it means that, hey, I do need to change my approach, particularly when I'm in pre-menopause or in menopause. And sometimes it means that I need to do the things that I've been avoiding doing in order to get the result that I want. So the key is to do simple better. So if you find yourself needing support outside of this community and these trainings, then reach out. I coach women 40 plus on how to stop dieting, know how to make empowered choices, be flexible versus all or nothing, and obviously letting go of being perfect. And obviously, like, I just want women to get their freedom back, to have the what they know how to do and what they're actually doing being more connected, feeling more in alignment. But I also want their hormones to be happier, or them to be happier with their hormones, and to have gut health too. So I hope that this training was helpful for you. I'm Coach Cindy, signing off.